So I want you to come back just real quick. So you the stimulus money, you said that went to law enforcement, right? And buying new toys, here in Oakland. I mean, how did they define that as shovel ready, which was one of the catchphrases, and then, lay out for our audience some of the specific things that they've done or purchased with that money, because I think it's important to highlight what that is and how they justify that.
We're still backing it all up. We know that Alameda County, which includes Oakland, got $11 million in law enforcement stimulus grants. And we know that in a recent protest where we were protesting the verdict for Johannes Messerly, the OPD, as well as Alameda County, rolled out a sound cannon. It's called an LRAD, long-range acoustic device. And it can basically make people deaf. It's designed to disperse people at a protest. And so they showed up with that right after the stimulus money came down. We know that by attending public safety committee meetings, every once in a while they approve a study, and it seems to be federally funded. The U.S. attorney shows up, he convenes this meeting, there's money for the overtime for police to create the evidence. So these are some of the indications we have. We haven't figured out everything that's going on. We also know that, for example, there's this one probation officer who's, I guess, the gang probation officer, and he's showing up everywhere. So at first there was an injunction in North Oakland. Now that there was one in the Fruitvale, everybody knows about this guy Randa. And he's like this cowboy PO. And now it turns out people in West Oakland are getting served with different documents. And this guy Randa is showing up again. So he's some sort of, I don't know if he's self-appointed, but he's paid through probably Drug Enforcement Act, DEA money. He's paid to crack down on gangs. Now another side of it, for those people who are familiar with grants, there's basically an incentive to certify people as gang members. So in the same way that Maisha and I have participated in education programs, you get paid a certain amount of money for each kid in your after-school program. We think the cops are getting paid for each person they certify as a gang member. So then what you have is a situation where if you're next to someone who's next to someone who might be involved in the gang, and the cops stop by and they find somebody with a little bag of weed, they're going to write a report that has everybody's name, and they're going to write a report that's saying this person is a Norteña or what have you. And then you're in the database. And that, in connection with you wearing a red shirt one day and maybe you getting a tattoo, suddenly you're certified. And that's federal money coming into Oakland.
And it's important to recognize, again, when you answer why Oakland, the budget crisis that Oakland is in, it's actually made national news. Oakland is in a dire economic situation, mostly because of mismanagement, a whole other host of issues. But it's been in the news, a huge fuss that 50 police officers had to get laid off or whatever. And so when you think about the economic incentive that Michael is talking about to enforce something like the gang injunction, it's another reason why it was very attractive for the city attorney and Oakland police to bring something like the injunctions up to Oakland. They tried it in San Francisco. It was work. They did it in LA, Sacramento. So all of these reasons have been, and also the political career of the city attorney. We have to never underestimate the political aspirations of people at power in city government and how they will use, particularly communities of color, to further advance their career. We just saw that with Jerry Brown, his recent bid for governorship, and how we used the San Francisco 8 case to basically win the hearts and minds of police in San Francisco and across the state, and now he won. So it's very important also to look at what is the city attorney about, and why would he be using the gang injunctions in relation to furthering his own career. So all of these things, the economic factors, the redevelopment and gentrification factors, political aspirations, and just the general state repression and racism, institutionalized racism that folks of color in Oakland have constantly been battling. It makes Oakland ripe for this type of repression. And it's important also that part of these new toys and these guns and these sonic machines, it also, it further militarizes our communities. And, you can just drive through North Oakland now and just see, and this is nothing new for us in Oakland. However, the level at which, and we see, Homeland Security, we see ICE, we see OPD, we see the sheriff, we see BART police now. It's literally an occupied territory, Oakland. And so the gang injunctions only increase that. It only increases the amount of state actors in our neighborhood. You know, when I say state actors, I mean all of these enforcement agencies. So it creates a very volatile situation. You know, it creates a situation that, and I mean volatile at the hands of these people, at the hands of the cops, you know, and it further isolates and I would say it creates levels of vulnerability in communities of color with no resources or recourse for protection, because we're told to go to the cops for protection, and yet it's the cops that are arresting us and are killing us and are profiling us.
So, I mean, just to move towards the proactive side, what type of organizing resistance response is happening against these gang injunctions in Oakland? And, you know, for our audience, which is, you know, national and international, what suggestions are there, you know, for them of how they can support the struggle here in Oakland against these repressive tactics and measures?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would think one of the most amazing things that's come out of these injunctions is really seeing the communities, you know, the North Oakland community, now the community in Fruitvale and, you know, the neighboring San Antonio district, the outskirts where these injunctions are being implemented, really rallying together and mobilizing. And we're seeing folks who weren't really politicized around issues of police repression on a state level or issues of just police brutality. We're seeing all of these folks really politicized under these gang injunctions, because now it's their family members, it's their sons, you know, it's their daughters, it's these people that have ended up on this list, and they're seeing firsthand how it's affecting their families and their communities. And so the level of organizing, I think, that's come out of the gang injunctions has been pretty amazing to see. This coupled with what's been happening in Oakland around the Oscar Grant murder, I think we've been making some really amazing connections around just the level of repression that is happening in our communities. And we can say, look, just like BART police murdered Oscar Grant, we see these police coming into our communities who could be a next potential victim, right? So I think the level of grassroots organizing has been amazing. The use of I think also the use of culture that's been happening has been really exciting. You know, the way people have been educated about the gang injunctions has been very unique, in that folks are using guerrilla theater, they're using murals, they're using songs, you know, they're really using a cultural medium to talk about what's happening. And that's important also because Mike will tell you, you know, the city attorney doesn't explain to these people how it actually functions. You know, there's really... the police aren't explaining to folks on the block, oh, this is what a gang injunction means and this is what you can do. You know, there's no explanation. And so it's really up to the community and the folks who are assisting the community to figure out, to navigate all of this. So that's where culture is really essential, because culture can speak to a wide variety of folks and it's very powerful. So we're really seeing folks in the community say, you know what, we're done with this. What can we do to stop this? Because another part is, once it's come to this neighborhood like North Oakland, I think what's been amazing is that you have people in that neighborhood say, we don't want it here and we don't want it anywhere else. And now that's happening in the Fruitvale. So we have folks in the North Oakland gang injunction, you know, who have been fighting against it, now joining up with people in the Fruitvale saying, they already brought it here, we don't want it to come here, so what can we do?
And we're getting smarter. I mean, there's a media team in the North Oakland injunction, and they have agreed to work with the Fruitvale Coalition, even the West Oakland Coalition, to develop press releases. So we're developing shared responsibilities. One of the problems with the North Oakland injunction was that there were no real lawyers fighting it. Mm-hmm. And because there weren't lawyers fighting it, they were able to get a default judgment without presenting really any detailed evidence against the defendants. Mm-hmm. And now that we have volunteer lawyers, we're starting to raise arguments. Hey, why isn't there a right to an attorney to an injunction? It's basically criminal. You can do time for it. Mm-hmm. And through outreach, we figured out that in Visalia County, lo and behold, the public defender is representing targets to a gang injunction. Mm-hmm. And so through this communication, we're also starting to recognize patterns. Mm-hmm. There's some relationship between this federal call-in program, federally funded call-in program, and then the city attorney's creation of the list. Mm-hmm. We know that in the Fruitvale, they had this call-in where they called in, you know, dozens of people, and they said, blah, 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 we're going to put you in jail or else. And then they offered them jobs, theoretically. And then 2 months later, they came out with the complaint for the injunction. Mm-hmm. So as soon as they did a call-in West Oakland, someone actually on the inside called us, the attorneys, and said, look, this is happening over there. Now we've got a West Oakland coalition starting before they even issued the injunction. And so part of this is information gathering, building alliances, from the hills to the flats, each different neighborhood, we need to unite and share information. That's one of the key strategies.
All right. Thank you both. Appreciate it. If there's information on how folks can get in contact with the organizing initiative, you want to share that real quick?
There is a website. If you basically put in Blogspot, Stop the Injunction, there's a website with a lot of information out here. Otherwise, Eastside Arts Alliance is one of the hosts of the Community Coalition.
Mm-hmm. We're www.eastsideartsalliance.com. You could probably go to Critical Resistance's website. There's a lot of different groups that are working, but the blog spot is probably the best place to get up-to-date information.
All right. Thank you both. This is Kylie Akudo signing off, bringing you some news that you can use for the Black Agenda Report.
Thanks, Kylie.
Thanks, homie.